Hi everyone, and welcome to our Thursday evening chat with some of our Red Centre tour operators, which is great to have everyone on board. Firstly, I'd like to start by acknowledging and paying respects to the First Nations elders past, present and emerging across our beautiful country. And there's some very strong cultural connections across Central Australia, as we may hear about a little bit tonight. My name is Caroline, and I've got over 20 years experience in the tourism industry, predominantly working with the international market, but also with the domestic market, bringing people to Australia for their holidays. Bit of housekeeping. We have our listeners' microphones muted, but we do welcome your engagement in the Q&A box down at the bottom of the screen. So just type in any questions you have down there or in the chat box, and Simon and I will monitor those, and we'll endeavour to get answers from our panel as we go. So let's start by introducing our guests. So we have Andrea Lehman from Outback Ballooning. So Andrea, you want to give a little webinar wave?
Webinar wave. Hi, everybody.
We have Ross and Robin from Outback Tour Services.
Hi.
And we have Simon from Wild Diaries.
Hello.
And throughout, you may see additional panel members log in as well as we go. So we'll chat to them when they do come on board. So let me start with Andrea. So the ballooning. My very first ballooning experience was with you guys many years ago. And when I received my itinerary to say that I was going to go up in a balloon, I was quite nervous, but it turned out to be the most extraordinary experience. So can you just give us a little bit of information about what it's like to go up in a hot air balloon, the reasons why you start at crazy early hours of the morning, etc.?
Oh, yeah, we do it because we all love to get up in the wee small hours. That's the main reason. No, it's to do with the weather. So the weather is the most stable early in the morning. So it's kind of a bonus that we get the sun coming up as well. So it's really nothing to do with that. It's just that the weather is the most stable out of all the day. So that's why.
Yeah. And a lot of people who may not necessarily be from Australia that are listening, I know we've got some international people signed up, but they don't quite understand the vast distances in Central Australia. So you guys operate out of Alice Springs, which is actually a very long way from Uluru. So you just explain the context of distances for us, please.
Yes. So you do not see Uluru from the balloon in Alice Springs. We're about 450 kilometres away. So people must stay in Alice Springs the night before to be able to do a balloon flight early in the morning. So, and it's interesting, we do have people that do say, oh, but you're up in the air, so can't you see Uluru anyway? But yeah, it is 450 kilometres, like I said, so a little bit hard for the naked eye to see.
Yeah, a little bit.
But you do get to see the beautiful McDonald Ranges. So,
and I think that's one of the bonuses. People probably don't understand the magnificence of the McDonald Range east and west of Alice Springs.
Yeah. And in the balloon, you're in the middle of nowhere. You've got big, wide open spaces, and those ranges are just stunning. Early morning, people talk about the Red Centre, about Uluru and the changing colours of Uluru, and the McDonald Ranges, exactly the same. Same red rock, just really long and really beautiful. So and seeing it from the balloon and just how far they stretch, not quite 450 kilometres, but still pretty amazing in the early hours of the morning.
Yeah, fantastic. Now we'll flip across to Robin and Ross. You guys do ground touring, airport transfers and extended touring out to Uluru. So just give us a little bit of information about some of the touring options you provide and offer.
Yeah, well, basically, I've been in the centre firstly for about 14 years. So like a lot of people, they come here, they don't know how long they're going to be here. They don't expect to still be here 14 years later. But, this region is such a magnetic region. People come here and they just end up staying here. Or if they do leave town, they end up coming back anyway, because this is where their love is. It's such an amazing place. So we do tours, anything from, half-day city tours or McDonald Ranges tours to full-day tours, and then out to Palm Valley or down to Uluru, Kings Canyon. It's all pretty much tailored to suit the individual. So it's all customised itineraries to suit what everyone wants. Everyone is different. Everyone has different desires of what they want to visit. We also get a number of specialised groups travelling, like the bird watching groups. There's so many vast array of birds here. Also photography tours that actually want to come out and spend the time photographing, like the beautiful Madonna Ranges and Uluru and so forth. And then there's also art groups that want to go out and paint, again, the Madonna Ranges or anywhere really. And the other thing we do is accessible touring. So we do wheelchair tours. So people who are in wheelchairs, a lot of people think, you know, we're in the desert, it's somewhere that you can't come if you're in a wheelchair, but we do cater for everyone. We have wheelchair accessible vehicles and an off-road wheelchair as well to get them into areas they wouldn't normally be able to get to. So a vast array of options. We can also do private tours from Alice up to Darwin or down to Adelaide. Pretty much wherever someone wants to travel, we can put an itinerary together for them.
Yeah.
That's a bit of an overview, and I mean, Ross is obviously, he's one of our lead guides here, so he's got the passion for the centre and leads groups through, so you may have more information of what you'd like to share regarding that.
No, that's right. Back to Caroline.
No? Okay.
No, that's fine. I think the key thing is that, I mean, the Red Centre is uniquely Australian. It's absolutely stunning, and you're right, it does. I've been back multiple times because it does have that real attraction. And so for people even considering wanting to visit, absolutely put it on your bucket list, because it's definitely one of those places to get to. I always chuckle quietly knowing that Alice Springs is quite a small town in the centre of Australia when you talk about doing a city tour. But I know there's some great experiences that are included a part of it as the Alice Town Tour. Can just talk about a few of those different experiences.
Yeah, certainly. Alice Springs population about 28,000. So it's a small place. My wife and I call it a 5-minute city. If you drive south, north, east or west, you're out of town. But attractions in town, you've got the Royal Flying Doctor Service, the School of the Air Visitor Centre, the Alice Springs Telegraph Station. We've got a fantastic lookout, Anzac Hill on top of the hill. And then there's quite a few other little bits and pieces around Flynn's Grave out the Westmax and Mount Gillen. You know, there's heaps of little spots you can talk about. Yeah.
I think for international guests, the whole Royal Flying Doctor Service and School of the Air are really quite unique again to our culture, you know, our culture and life in the outback. And it's how a lot of children are educated. It's how a lot of people who may come across some injuries or something are transported to safety. So maybe just enlighten a little bit more about those services, those experiences.
Yeah, sure. The Royal Flying Doctor Service, they have a headquarters here at the hospital, and they transport patients from basically a fairly big area in Australia. Now, if the hospital in Alice Springs can't deal with that emergency, they will send the patient to Adelaide as quick as they can. Adelaide being about 1,500 kilometres to the south, and that's where the patient will get better care. Adelaide has a much bigger population, much bigger hospital. But people, as far as I know, they fly people in from east of Kalgoorlie, which is 2,000 or 3,000 kilometres to the west of us. And so they do a big service for the centre of Australia. The visitor centre at the School of the Air, at the moment they have about 120 students, I believe. And the furthest people away from Alice who get taught by that school are about 800 kilometres northwest, up towards Halls Creek, just inside the Northern Territory. But the School of the Air caters for those kids, and they're taught remotely most of the year, but a few times of the year they actually come into town and get to meet their classmates. So it's a real experience for them.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, for us. Now, I'd better introduce Rex, who's just arrived on our screens. Hi, Rex. Nice to see you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Rex is from the Alice Springs Reptile Centre. So, Rex, do you want to give us a brief little intro on your experience up there?
At the moment, probably it's not so good because there's not that much tourism around. Normally, we get about 30,000 people a year.
Yep.
And we've been running for about 20 years. So normally we do pretty well. This year it's a little bit suck it and see, unfortunately, but we're hoping better things for next year. But we have around about 250 animals on site, and we mainly do tourism, reptile-related tourism. We're also advanced ecotourism accredited.
Okay, fantastic. And I'm sure I'll come back to you soon to learn a bit more about some of those interesting critters that we have in our country. Andrea, back to you with the ballooning. How far out of the sort of township of Alice do you head to do your flights?
So we head about 15 to 20 kilometres out towards the airport, so south of Alice Springs, and we fly over sort of the airport area and also the Owen Springs station, so about 3,000 square kilometres. So it just depends on the morning, which way the wind's blowing, as to where we take off, where we land, how far we travel, how high we go. It's all very subjective to the weather, and whether or not we actually do fly is to do with the weather as well. So
how many days a year would you estimate that you don't actually fly due to weather? Is it fairly consistent each year?
Yeah, we fly between 250 to 300 days a year. The majority of that flying is done at this time of the year in winter. So winter is, again, the most stable, just because it's colder in the morning. And so the weather, although at the moment we've had a couple of wet and windy days in August, which is quite unusual. So we've had a couple of cancellations, but traditionally we fly most of July, August. September has windy days, and then you get sort of, as you get warmer, it then tends to get a little bit sort of windier in the mornings as well.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Ross and Robin, a slightly different question when you guys do sort of ground touring in vehicles, but can you just highlight for those listening that are interested in some of the great walks that you have in Central Australia, like the Larapinta and that? Give a little bit of information about those walks at all?
We do transfers out to the Larapinta Trail as well. So beautiful spots out there, Stanley Chasm, Ellery Creek, Ormiston Gorge. I've done a couple of little sections myself of the trail, and when you're actually walking on top of the ranges, it is quite amazing the views you get from up there. And it's one thing to visit the waterholes are beautiful, but when you actually see it from the top of the mountain range, it is quite an amazing view, and you don't imagine that you're only within, an hour or less of the town of Alice Springs. It's quite incredible that you can be so close to town to be in the middle of nowhere, basically. So beautiful scenery, beautiful gaps, gorges and waterholes along there. And it's like the hidden treasure of Alice Springs, I think. A lot of people come up here and they do a quick city tour, they're off to the Rock. They don't get out to the McDonald Range, and it's such a special place that people really need to come and see, because it's quite amazing and so close to town. So I really encourage people to come and explore that part of Central Australia.
And are the overnight accommodated and guided trips, are they generally, 4 or 5 days long? Or 7 days?
So they can all be varied, really, depending on how long people have. It's sort of, it's all pretty much tailored towards the person. So we can do anything from a couple of days to, 7, 8, 9 days. I've had a few itineraries set up for, 9, 10-day itineraries that have now been obviously moved to next year for obvious reasons. But it really depends on who's travelling, family groups, individuals. We can do anything from one person up to big bus loads of family and friends. So it's really entirely tailored around what they want to do.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Rex, where did your love of reptiles and wildlife come from?
Unfortunately, I've done it for quite a while, but it probably started off when I was a little kid, and I blame Mum. She was allergic to cats and dogs, so we couldn't have a cat or a dog, so I used to bring home lizards instead. Then it evolved into snakes probably at about university level, and then from there it went off from there. So and it's probably different to a normal desk job, but it gets me around places and see different things, meet lots of new people, and they're quite interesting. And when people come to our place, they see them behind glass, and if they put their hand on the glass is obviously cold, and so they think that they're cold-blooded, which is the term for them, but they're really not. They're ectothermic. So if it's hot, they're hot. If it's cold, they're cold. So every time we do training courses, and when people come and we want them to learn about them, it changes people's minds when you can get them out and let people actually hold a real one, rather than see them behind glass or even touch a dead one. So which is sometimes the only way people have touched one.
Yeah, and I know the few times that I've touched the various reptiles, that the feeling of their skin is just quite extraordinary. It's not what you expect at all. It's really soft and sort of, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's very different. We do a few disabled groups as well that come in, Acacia Hill School might bring some of their students in as well, or we might go there. And some of these students are so badly affected that when the teachers and the carers are with them, they say that just a raise of an eyebrow is what they look for as recognition of enjoyment. And they get that from the texture of the skin of the animal. So we'll bring different lizards or different snakes so that we have different textured skin, and they feel that with that. So it's very important that sense of touch.
Yes, that's amazing. And I see you offer a venomous snake removal training courses. Do you get many people put their hand up for that one?
It all depends, and we just did our first training course for a while. That was only about a week and a half ago. That was out at Stanley Chasm. Stanley Chasm does have a few snakes out there. Most of our training courses were put on hold due to COVID, of course, but we're getting back into it. We're running some courses up in the top end of Northern Territory right at the moment. And then I've got a couple of courses down here straight after that. So we are getting back into the courses, and it's just a fact of life. Some of the mining sites we do courses for, they might be, the mine will be on Aboriginal land. And so part of their agreement to be on that land is they're not allowed to harm any animal. So the animals have to be safely removed and then relocated somewhere else. So usually that's written into most stipulations these days for mining sites. So therefore they do need that training. And as far as other training goes, whether it be somewhere like Stanley Chasm, you've got an area there where there's a lot of people milling around, even though you're in amongst nature and the animals should be in nature. If the animal does come into where you're eating, or let's say you're on the toilet and you've got your pants down, it's probably not so good. So in those cases, it does need to be removed and just relocated back out bush.
Yeah, for their own safety, if anything, as well.
Yeah.
So we don't try and do something to the poor things. Yeah. Okay, Andrea, I think one of the most amazing feelings is as a hot air balloon lifts off the ground and you sort of don't even realise you're moving until it suddenly you see the ground quite a distance below you. Is there any words to describe that experience of a hot air balloon ride?
I don't think there is. I've, as you would know, and I've spoken to you a lot of times about ballooning when you're doing presentations, you try to describe that to people, but until they actually do it, if people come back and say, now I get what you mean. You don't just, it's just really hard to describe. And I think people think that they're going, when it takes off, that you're going to take off like an aeroplane. Yeah. So, you're going to go zoom and off you go kind of thing. And it's just, I remember the very first time I did it as well. I was on a famil and chattering away as you do, and then talking away. And then we kind of looked out and went, oh, okay, when did that happen? We're up in the air. So I generally say to a lot of people that are scared of heights, scared of flying, but really want to go hot air ballooning, that's kind of how I describe to them. I say, you don't realise, in the excitement of getting into the basket and the burners going off and it being dark and you're not really knowing what to expect, you don't have time to think about being scared or being like the heights or anything like that. And by the time you're kind of up, you're looking out and you're just, wow at the scenery. And the fact that you are just up in the air and it's really quiet and peaceful. People don't have time, and they don't think about the fact that, oh, hang on a minute. Yeah. I'm supposed to be scared of heights. So I think, and we just say to people, look out. You look out at the beautiful scenery. You don't have to look down. I mean, you can look over the edge. And, but, most people will just look out, and even people with vertigo we've taken, and they've had no issues at all. So it's just a really different feeling. And it is hard to describe, but it's certainly, it is certainly worthwhile taking the plunge. And as I say to people, if you get there and you're too scared to get in the basket, we're not going to pick you up and throw you in and say, you'll be right, off you go. You can stay on the ground with the crew. You can chase the balloon with the crew through the bush, come out the other side, meet everybody, have a nice sparkling wine, and life will go on. But every person I've said that to has got on and gone for a flight and been glad that they did. So
yeah, that's fantastic.
mm.
So from Ross and Robin again, from Alice Springs, obviously if we head west, there's some fairly iconic landscapes and destinations. Just touch on maybe some Watarrka and then out to Uluru and some of the experiences of what people can expect out there.
Yeah, certainly. The little scene we've got behind us is actually Palm Valley, part of the Finke River, which is the oldest river in the world, and it's a great spot. You can get in there by yourself in a four-wheel drive, but going on a day tour, you get to do a couple little walks and learn a lot more about the history of the place. When you get out to Watarrka, which is Kings Canyon National Park, there's a fantastic walk again, and I'd encourage people to get a guided tour around there. The walk is about 6 kilometres. It takes about 3.5 to 4 hours to get around, but the guide will take you through the stunning scenery, how the rock is made, who discovered it back in, it was about 1870 when Ernest Giles went out there. He was the fellow, and the resort is just down the road from Kings Canyon itself. But yeah, absolutely fantastic scenery. The water in Palm Valley, like we can see down here, the Finke River normally has some water in it all year round, but this particular spot can be dry, but it can have some water, as you can see. But the photo doesn't really do it justice. The red and the, in certain times of the day, the scenery just jumps out at you. It's awe-inspiring. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And then geologically, I think, so you've got Mount Connor, you've got Kings Canyon, you've got Uluru. They're all geologically different, and the Olgas, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Kata Tjuta was the first one, or the Olgas. They're known by the same name, but it's more conglomerate rock. When you get a little bit further downstream where all the rocks have stopped, you end up with the sandstone, and that's where Uluru is. Uluru is a couple of hundred feet shorter than the Olgas, but and then further downstream you've got Mount Connor. Now Mount Connor's not in the same geological age as what Uluru and Kata Tjuta are, or Ayers Rock and the Olgas, same thing. Mount Connor was formed during an ice age, and it was a glacier that pushed that one up. It's actually on private property on Curtin Springs, and you can do tours from there to go and have a look at that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Back to Rex again. Can we just, you don't have any snakes hanging over your shoulder at the moment, do you, to show everybody?
No.
One of the cutest little reptiles, I guess, is the thorny devils. So they're just unique to Australia, are they, or are they an animal you'll find anywhere else?
No, they're completely unique to Australia only. So they're nowhere else in the world, and they're very, very hard to keep alive in captivity. They eat basically several thousand ants a day. So if you can't keep up that many ants, and even for us at our workplace, it's hard to keep up sometimes because they'll just chew through a whole colony. So that's why you can travel anywhere in the world and you just won't see one in a zoo. So realistically, the only place you're going to see one is in Australia. But even in Australia, you know, if you went to the East Coast, you won't see one over there in a zoo either. You're most likely going to see one in Alice Springs, either at our place or the desert park, maybe a couple of spots maybe in Perth, and that's about it. They're about the only places that got them on public display. So any major zoo in Australia, whether it be Australia Zoo, Taronga Zoo, Melbourne, Adelaide, all the major zoos don't have thorny devils. So they are pretty hard to see. Now, I was just looking down below at the photograph of Palm Valley there. I was just at Palm Valley recently and also at Kings Canyon recently. Both really wonderful areas. Same as Mount Connor is an amazing area. So we do have all those areas, by the way, or maybe not so much Palm Valley, but certainly Mount Connor and Kings Canyon, the thorny devil is visible around those areas. So you might be lucky enough to see one in the wild there. But what we tell tourists is you can either come to our place first, and then when you do out bush, you know exactly what you're looking for, because they think of thorny devils like 1 metre long, whereas it's not. You know, it's the size of an average phone. So it's maybe 15 to 20 centimetres long at the most. So they're tiny. At least if you come to our place, you know what to look for when you are out bush. So we always encourage people to come in first and then learn all about the animals so they might see it in the wild. Or if they have been out in the wild first and they've seen something or got a photograph of something, then they can bring it in to us afterwards and we can help identify it.
Yeah.
Rex, they've got a really extraordinary way of drinking as well, don't they? Tell us about that.
The Thorny Devils,
Yeah.
They basically drink using their feet. So if there's a puddle of water on the ground, they only have to put their foot into the water. The water will be sucked up through little capillaries onto their back and into their mouth. They can actually drink with their mouth directly from water. I know there's researchers say that they can't do that, but we've seen it. We've actually filmed it. So they can do that, but preferably, normally, it's just from capillary uptake. They can also walk past, say, dew on a leaf, and the same thing will happen. The dew will go onto one of their spikes into their little capillaries and then funnel down through into their mouth. So they do have quite an amazing way of drinking. The equivalent to a human would be walking into a bar, put your hand on the bar and having a drink. But in COVID times, we certainly wouldn't be doing that.
No, we don't recommend that at the moment, do we?
No.
Andrea, what group sizes can you manage with your balloons? Because the baskets come in various sizes, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes. The biggest basket size we have is 24. And then we have 20, 16, 12, 8, and right down to a 2-person balloon. At the moment, the largest, due to COVID and sort of the lack of people around, the largest is probably 16, the 16-person one we're doing. But in normal times, we can do up to 44 on a morning.
It's a good crowd of people, isn't it? Do you all end up at the same site for your sparkling wine?
With the 2 balloons, sometimes they can, but again, it just kind of varies. Sometimes they'll end up in different places, so they would just stop and have their light refreshments wherever they've landed. But yeah, if they can maneuver them to be at the same spot, then yeah, they'll have it all together.
Fantastic. Okay, it's amazing how quickly time goes when you're chatting away to people. So one more round of questions. Robin and Ross, why should people head to Central Australia? What's a real key reason to get out and to see our incredible Red Centre?
Very briefly, Caroline, I love it out here. I've been here 6 years as a guide, and my first trip out here was 1994. But it's just the awe-inspiring. I mean, you look at the horizon out here is just huge. You're not hemmed in. You walk outside and that horizon just seems to stretch forever. As the sun goes down or the sun comes up, you get this pink and blue hue on it. And that is just stunning. At night time, you don't have to drive very far out of Alice and you can see the stars like never before. They just light up the sky. They are just absolutely fantastic. There's so many things. I mean, the West MacDonnell Ranges with their hues, the flocks of birds that float around. We've got quite a diversity of bird life around here. I remember seeing a flock of budgies years ago, and there would have been 5,000 or 6,000 of them in one group. You just can't describe that to anybody unless you see it. Kings Canyon, I've seen flocks of cockatiels. There's ringnecks that hang around town, as well as wedge-tailed eagles and crows and kites, and there's just everything. The Fink River is just fantastic. I don't know, I could go on for quite a while.
Awesome, thank you for that. Now we have to go back to Rex because he does have a reptile on his head. What, you need to put your mic on again, Rex. What are we looking at crawling around the top of your head there?
I've just got Morgan out. So I've actually, Morgan's a Stimson's python. So he's a couple of years old and he's just brought him out for a little look around. He's having a little look around and you might be able to see the tongue flicking in and out. So he's working out what's going on. There he goes. But yeah, these are one of the ones that you would normally see. So if you did go to Watarrka or if you did go out to Palm Valley, you could actually see a Stimson's python. They're beautiful little creatures. They only grow to about 1 metre long. And they're one of our fantastic fauna that you will see around this region.
Okay, that is wonderful. Sorry, we just had a question. Are there ever nighttime balloon flights?
No, we're not allowed to. CASA will not allow us to fly in the dark. So we're that's why in the morning we take off at first light, and we're not allowed to. Yeah, we're not allowed to take off earlier. We have to wait, and even if we wanted to, we have to wait. Yeah. So
I think people probably don't understand that you're actually governed by CASA, just like light aircraft are, aren't you? In helicopters.
We are, absolutely. We have an operations manual. We are audited by CASA. Yes, very much so.
Absolutely. All righty, everyone. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's just been wonderful chatting about a region of Australia that I love dearly, and I've been very fortunate to visit many times. So if people are thinking of planning on going, make sure you get in touch with us and we can organise a trip. Of course, that's if your borders are open, but there's no time like the present to be dreaming about your next amazing vacation. So, so thanks, guys. Stay safe, stay well, and we really appreciate your time. And thanks, Rex, for bringing Morgan out to introduce us.
No problems at all.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.
Have
Bye.
a good night.
You too.
See ya.